a monster born of a curse that causes the affected to become filled with hatred towards all living beings, which in turn allows them to kill without a second thought. The certain monster I'm referring to is that of a Striga, which affects only women and, as I stated, fills them with hatred. Strigas are known only to come out and hunt during a full moon, and they do so with incredible speed and strength, making it almost impossible for anyone caught by this monster to survive. In this video, we're going to be looking into a well-known case of this curse, which involved King Foltest's daughter, Princess Adda, otherwise known as Adda the White. But quickly before we start, if you're new, please consider subscribing to keep up with my lore videos. And also, if you enjoy this video, please leave a like and check out my other lore videos. I'll leave a card up in the top right for you to check out. So, how did this curse on Foltest's daughter, Princess Adda, come to be? Well, we'll need to go back to the months that led up to Princess Adda's birth. Adda was the daughter of King Foltest and the previous Princess of Temeria, who was Foltest's sister, also named Adda. This incestuous relationship between Foltest and Adda was looked down upon by many, but mostly by their mother Sansia of Sodden and Ostrit, who was a member of Foltest's court and happened to be in love with the princess. Their mother Sansia never accepted this relationship between her children, as it quite frankly sickened her. Sansia was very vocal with this opinion, which led many to initially believe that she had something to do with the occurrence of this curse. But this was not the case, as they were still her children and she still somewhat loved them enough to not do this to them. However, this was not the case for Ostrit, who now harboured much hatred towards Foltest for what he had done. Ostrit felt as if Foltest had stolen his chance to be with Adda, and felt he had to get revenge. Ostrit sought out a witch in order to help him carry out his revenge plan. During this meeting with the witch, Ostrit explained to her how he wanted Foltest to taste his vengeance and how he wanted his child to Adda to be born as monstrous as he is, to which the witch prepared a curse. This curse would then require Ostrit to prepare some ingredients and then repeat the words of the curse thrice, or 3 times to make it so. And yeah, that's what he did. This curse took effect immediately, and when Adda gave birth to her child, she died along with the baby that came out severely deformed looking. So deformed looking in fact that one of the midwives that witnessed the birth leapt from the tower window to her death, and the other was so disturbed by what she had seen that she lost all her senses, rendering her pretty much a vegetable for the rest of her life. After this horrible tragedy, Foltest ordered their remains to be buried in the family tomb beneath the palace. Though this was not the end of the vile curse, as 7 years later Foltest's daughter came back to life, not as a child, but as a Striga. 7 more years passed, to which many people including witches had tried to lift the curse on Adda, to no avail. This led to Adda roaming the streets of Vizima on full moons, killing as she pleased. To try and mitigate this, Foltest would tie prisoners up outside the family crypt as punishment, to which Adda would eat them and would be satisfied enough not to ravage the local populace. Though this rarely worked, as she would most of the time still want more after killing the prisoner that had been tied up. Because of this, it meant that the problem was getting out of control, to which some people in Foltest's court began offering a separate reward behind Foltest's back if someone was to kill Adda instead of lifting the curse, yet still no one could accomplish such task. One day Geralt happened to come across a notice about lifting the curse that was placed on Adda, and noticed that there was a 3,000 Oren reward. This he could not say no to and set off for Vizima. Once in Vizima, he knew he'd have to speak to the Castellan Valorad in order to get more info about the contract. Geralt also knew that he needed to get the attention of King Foltest to show him he means business. Geralt made his way to one of the roughest taverns in town, to which he cut down 3 men in order to lure the guards to his position. Once the guards came, as he knew they would, he used the Axie sign to get them to take him to the Castellan. Now with Castellan Valorad, he gained more information about the contract. This is where he finds out that there's a separate secret reward if Adda was to be killed instead. Also, during this conversation, this is where Geralt is informed more about the men that came before him who tried to lift this curse. He was told of 3 witches who tried. 1 was killed, 1 didn't even attempt and left after being informed that the curse was to be lifted, and 1 fled at the sight of Adda in her Striga form. After this conversation, Geralt tells Valorad that he's still interested in taking this contract, to which he is taken to speak with King Foltest personally. When Geralt entered the new Vizima palace, he noticed Foltest along with 2 other men. These 2 men were Ostred and Lord Segilin. At this time, Foltest was still unaware that it was Ostred who had placed this curse on Adda, therefore still had him within his court. There was a small conversation with Foltest, who laid out the terms and condition of the contract, to which he then ordered Ostred and Segilin to answer any further questions, as well as to set Geralt up with a room for the night. The next night, Geralt arranged to have a victim that survived an attack brought to his room in order to examine his wounds. After he'd finished the examination, it was revealed to Geralt that the hooded soldier that had brought the victim to his room was in fact King Foltest, who secretly made his way there disguised as a soldier to have an off-the-record discussion with Geralt regarding his daughter. During this conversation, he asks many questions of Geralt, such as whether it's actually possible to lift this curse, whether she'll be normal if the curse is lifted, and many more. From this conversation, we can see that Foltest genuinely cares about his daughter and is eager to have her in his life, as in one part of the conversation he admits to Geralt that he's never actually seen her and wants to be there when Geralt attempts to lift the curse in order to see her at least one time before she possibly dies. Geralt strongly opposes this, as it would mean a certain death for the king, to which he sees Geralt's point. After this honest conversation with Geralt, Foltest gains much more trust in Geralt and his abilities, and before leaving, lets Geralt know that he knows of the secret reward for killing his daughter, and tells him he doesn't mind if Geralt must kill her in order to save his own life, but lets him know that if he does, he will not get any payment from the king, and instead will have to seek out the reward from the other conspirators. I think he lets Geralt know this, as from the conversation he has with him, he sees that Geralt is there to provide genuine help and will try his hardest to remove the curse instead of just going in there with the intention of killing her right off the bat. Therefore, he feels it would be a shame for such a man to die due to him not wanting to annoy the king. I thought this was pretty cool of him and really gives you some insight into both his and Geralt's personalities, as it shows they're both men of morals. On the next full moon, Geralt set up camp in the old Vizima palace above the family crypt in order to wait for Princess Adda to emerge. His ultimate goal was to spend the night in the tomb with Adda as a strigger until the next morning, to which hopefully the curse would be broken and Adda would return to her human form. As the sun began to set, Geralt had some time to prepare himself, as he knew Adda wouldn't emerge from her tomb until midnight. Geralt began by preparing and ingesting certain potions along with last-minute weapon and armor checks. After this, Geralt sat alone in the ruins meditating. This was until his enhanced senses from the potions he'd ingested allowed him to pick up the sound of shuffling footsteps coming across the courtyard. Geralt was puzzled, as these footsteps were far too light to be the striggers, so he went to investigate. As he reached the courtyard, he was confronted by Ostred. Ostred quickly made his intentions clear, as he didn't want to stick around the old palace too long in fear of the strigger. He made a proposition to Geralt, which was to take a sum of money in order to leave without dealing with the strigger. The reason for this was that Ostred wanted the strigger to remain in the palace and continue killing people in order to further torment King Foltest, as he'd obviously feel bad that his daughter is doing this. This proposition is the reason it's taken so long for the strigger to be dealt with, because Ostred has constantly been doing this behind everyone's back. Geralt ultimately turns down Ostred's offer and then ties him up to use as bait for the strigger after Ostred tried to attack the Witcher for refusing. After the capturing of Ostred, time passes and it slowly reaches midnight. Through the use of his enhanced senses, Geralt hears the scraping of the sarcophagus lid opening and instantly knows this to be the strigger coming out to feast. Geralt then unties Ostred and tells him to flee, knowing that the strigger will take the bait and chase him down. As Ostred tries to escape, he was easily caught and killed by the strigger, to which he was eaten. After feasting on Ostred's carcass, the strigger still had a thirst for killing, to which he had now noticed Geralt standing in the middle of the courtyard, weapon drawn. A fight quickly ensues, to which Geralt attempts to shackle the strigger with a silver chain. This was unsuccessful, and she easily broke out of it. Geralt's initial plan had failed, to which he had to, on the spot, think of a new one. After more scrapping, Geralt fled to the inner tomb with a plan in mind. In order to break the curse, Geralt knew that all he'd had to do was spend the night with the strigger and not allow her to return to her tomb enclosure to rest. Knowing this, Geralt sealed himself inside the sarcophagus that once contained Adda's body and traced the Yrden sign inside to try and ward her away. It worked, and after hours of the Striga clawing and roaring at the sarcophagus, silence had finally fallen within the crypt. Geralt waited a little longer to be safe before emerging from the sarcophagus. Upon emerging, he saw the body of the princess laying on the ground. Geralt rushed over to check if she was okay, to which she attacked him with her razor-sharp nails, either out of fear or shock, causing a deep wound on Geralt's neck, which began to violently leak blood. After somewhat calming the princess, Geralt passed out due to the amount of blood he'd lost. Later, he awoke in the Vizima Palace, to which he was informed that the curse was successfully lifted from Princess Adda. He was also informed that Adda was not yet mentally developed, but showed signs of the ability to learn, which was promising, as it was initially thought that she might come back to her human form, but still have the mentality of a Striga. In order to prevent Adda from relapsing into the curse, for the rest of her life she would be required to wear an inclusion sapphire necklace on a silver chain, which is a sapphire with a pocket of air trapped within it. She would also be required to burn juniper, broom and aspen in the fireplace of her chamber, which would also help with warding off the curse. These steps were followed exactly throughout the next years of her life, to which she grew into what some would describe as a spoiled little bitch. In fact, a local butcher in Vizima named his dog after Adda for the reason of it being a bitch. You know, a female dog. In the years following Adda being freed from the curse, Geralt runs into her while investigating the Salamandra in Vizima. Ultimately, Geralt finds out that Adda was conspiring with the Salamandra in order to stage a coup against her father during his absence from the throne. Geralt finds this out after reading a note found on the professor's body after killing him. This not only confirms that she was working with them, but also confirms the rumours of her being spoiled. The note mentions Adda as extremely spoiled and very difficult to persuade, and also refers to her as a slut, which gives some insight into the hatred some people had towards her. The note also mentions that the Salamandra are second-guessing their relationship with Adda, as they see her as dangerous. After recovering this note from the dead professor, Geralt makes his way to the exit of the cave he just had the fight in, and upon exiting is confronted by Adda and many guards, to which she admits to how she was working with the Salamandra, and then sentences him to death, as she knows he'll be a danger in regard to her plan to overthrow her father. But before Adda's guards have a chance to capture Geralt, he was then teleported away by Triss, which saved his life. The reason for Adda doing all this was that the Salamandra had promised her that once her father was out of the picture, they would put her atop the throne. But this was not the case, as Geralt finds out after a conversation with Foltest after making his way back to Vizima. During this conversation, Geralt is told that Adda has been transformed back into a Striga, and that Foltest requires his help to lift the curse again, to which Geralt accepts. Upon lifting the curse for a second time, Adda then tells Geralt that the professor had tricked her into doing this, as he promised her the throne, but in the end, when they drew closer to capturing the throne, Adda was double-crossed by one of her close bodyguards, Adda The White. Roderick was secretly working with the Salamandra as some sort of spy, and was the one that was to find a way to finish what Adda couldn't, which was to get the wheels rolling on the overthrow of King Foltest. The way he did this was by causing the curse to return to Adda, to which he would hope she would go on a killing spree, and in turn would cause King Foltest's position to be undermined, and therefore would make the coup a lot easier. The way the curse was recast upon Adda is quite interesting, as it required some extensive preparation. The curse required Adda to ingest a meal, which contained 3 drops of her father's blood, 3 drops of blood from a wolf, and 3 drops of bile from a freshly buried woman who died having finished 100 years but not yet having started her 101st, meaning it must be a lady that died as soon as she reached 100 and not a year older. Then to finish the curse off, an incepted triangle must then be cast over this meal. All this information was found in Ostrich's journal, which was then relayed to Roderick by Alessandra Deville, to which the curse was recast. Ultimately, this curse was lifted by Geralt once again, to which Roderick attacked Geralt for messing up his plan, which led to Roderick's death. After lifting the curse again, Adda spent many months recovering and then went on to marry Radovid, the king of Redania, in turn making her the Queen of Redania. Adda was meant to be put into The Witcher 3 alongside Radovid as Queen, but in the end CDPR decided to leave her out, maybe due to time constraints, kinda like how they cut content for France's Bedlam, which sucks, as I think they could have done some pretty cool stuff with all the history between Geralt and Adda. I mean, who knows, maybe you could even get to bang her again. I don't know, leave a comment below if you've got any suggestions on what kind of content they could have added if they decided to add her into the game. But anyway, that's the lore behind Adda the White, the former princess of Temeria and the current queen of Redania. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe for more Witcher content. Thanks.